remember in this little club where you throw your peanut shells and there's wood shavings on the floor. This little Afro-American man came up to me and during a break and said, "I really like you singing, and I'm going to give you my card. My daughter is Chaka Khan."
Hey, courageous journeyers, welcome back to the Bravery Path, a show dedicated to guiding you on a kick-ass expedition toward the life of fearless authenticity, self-discovery, and boundless potential. Our topic today is about dancing with destiny. It's never too late to pursue your ambitions and dreams. And today's episode I like to call A Star Reborn. Today is an incredibly special episode because I get to interview the wonderful woman who brought me into this world and who I'm lucky to call my mom.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting for me. There's a lot to think about for today's little gathering, for sure. There's lots to talk about.
I know you have so many stories. Why don't we start off with so many? Could you introduce yourself?
My name is April Gislason, my maiden name being Spanish, of course, but how I landed up in Canada is it's a long story, but there's a lot of things that brought me to this place. And I was born in New York City, and I was raised by two parents who grew up in New York City and your grandparents. And yeah, my dad went into the Marine Corps. We traveled quite a bit, had brothers in other states, one in Newport Beach, California, one in Kingsville, Texas. And in our early life, my father was away a lot in the first few years, and music was a big deal. My mom was a camp counselor. She performed music in New York City, and that's where it all started.
So in the early days, when you're reflecting back on childhood, who do you think was more of an influence on forming you as a musician?
My father gave me he didn't give it to me. He had a Gibson guitar that was given to him. And he taught me a few chords when I was in North Carolina. I was about 11 years old. And your grandma, Lillian, always played the piano. There was always a piano in our house. And she always played songs, classic pop tunes of her time. And from a very early age, she used to just wake me up to, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." Yeah, and I remember her doing that. It was very sweet. And of course, she was going to church a lot. We went to church and we sang in the choir. I sang in the choir. So I would say, was it gospel? No, it wasn't gospel, but I did have an incident where I did break out singing "Onward Christian Soldiers" in a gospel form. And my mom looked at me and nudged me, actually.
Nudging, but his elbows.
Nudged me and said,
"Stop making it gospel and fun."
I said, "Mom, this is how I sing." So
you got to give everybody a sample. So
that's pretty.
If you're not familiar with being in a traditional kind of church setting, "Onward Christian soldiers" or something like that, right? Like
"Onward Christian soldiers," really basic, straight melody. And I, of course, was going, "Onward Christian soldiers, marching off to war."
This already was in your soul.
Yeah, I was already there, and Mom just gave me a good nudge. But anyway, music was a big part of our life, and we used to travel and drive across the states to different places we were going to live. Mom would always pull out the old camp songs, "Roll Out the Barrel," and "Old MacDonald Had a Farm," and I don't know, there was always singing. So it was always a big part of our life.
So what were your musical aspirations in your earlier years? Like,
you know what? I didn't have. All I knew was that I loved music.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to the radio. I used to sing a lot of the pop songs that came on in the 60s. The Dionne Warwick songs, the Beach Boys, I don't know, all the stuff that was on the radio. I would sing along to it. And I guess it wasn't until I started playing guitar that I started feeling like I did take piano lessons, but I had a terrible teacher. So totally turned me off. Totally turned me off.
His official name was Mr. Snornick or something.
Snornick, and he actually snored. I didn't catch him sleeping, so it was like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this guy. Anyway, it wasn't until we moved back from North Carolina, and we were there for 4 years, that we moved back to Southern California, where we mostly lived most of our lives.
Yep.
And I had to re-enter. I was going into 10th grade, and it's all about fitting in. Thank God I'm a fairly open person, and I'm not
You're an Aries.
an Aries. So I started to continue to play my guitar more. I found that it was a way of getting attention because people would listen to what I was doing. I started writing some songs. I mean, back then you were listening to the Joni Mitchell, Bonnie Raitt, Elton John. Then, but she grew up in a fun time. Yeah, it was some great music, great James Taylor, Carly Simon, Carole King, classic writers, great music. And then as I got into Led Zeppelin started happening and Black Sabbath and all the Bad Company. And I was into every extreme from the rock all the way to
So
the folk.
very fully
Yeah.
diverse musical
Yeah.
background. Then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And basically singing at church. But then I started breaking out and singing at high school. And I guess that's when things started to happen. I was singing at a small little folk club called the Four Muses. It was in San Clemente, and lots of people started there. Jack Temption, Jackson Brown, even Kate
What is it,
Taylor.
folk?
Yeah, it was a folk club. You'd have food nannies. Okay. I would sit in and play some original songs.
Okay.
And people like Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee, I got a little more interested into the blues.
Okay.
But it was an opportunity. And that's when a friend of mine, who is still a really good friend today, Corky Carroll, saw me and wanted me to start playing music with him. Now, I was underage. He had to get my parents' permission. And we were playing clubs, and we even played at San Diego University, which I was super nervous. And yeah, so I was with Corky Carroll, who was a 5-time world champion surfer, very well known. We grew up down in Southern California where it's a surf culture, right? My high school, everybody surfed, and that was the scene. And after Corky, I started performing a lot more in Laguna Beach with friends. And one of the main bands that I used to go see was Honk. Steve Wood, you've met, and Beth Fachet, his wife, Tristan Bowden, the drummer who was with Chicago for 25 years, Manny Loggins, but Tristan Bowden was the drummer, Richard Steckel, the great players, and we used to go see them, and I admired them so much for their harmonies, their original material, and their big claim to fame was 5 Summer Stories. But at that time, Greg McGillivray and Bill Freeman were movie makers, and when they were movie makers, and surf films were a big deal back then. So I was asked by Greg McGillivray if I would do 2 songs on the upcoming movie Going Surfing.
Okay.
Which for me was a big deal. I was in high school.
It's your first kind of big project.
Yeah, I was 16 and a half. I was 17 years old. And I wrote a song called For Us. I had written it prior to being asked. And I did a harmonica solo. Okay. And I was into playing blues harp. I was really into that. At that time, I was opening up people like Charlie Musselwhite, not playing harp as a solo guitar player and singer. But yeah, that was another
How do you know,
incredible
musician listeners, harp is a slang music term that is like a nickname for a harmonica.
Here is an old worn out album. This is Going Surfing. See it. And this was produced by Greg McGillivray and Bill Freeman at the time. They were the IMAX Kings. Okay. And yeah, I think in the back,
hold it up actually just a little closer. Not even just do a segue cut so people can actually see.
Yeah. And you can see me, little surfer girl with Bob Hawkins and Dave McMahon, and still friends today. And anyway, that was a hoot to do that. And it premiered at Santa Monica Civic. I took my parents and my brothers with me. It was a big deal. Anyway, after high school, it was onward and upward. Things started happening, and I was feeling pretty confident that music was definitely the route I wanted to go.
Yeah. So that's fun, but okay. It's a longer journey. You've interacted. You've already dropped some names, Chicago and Honk and McGillivray, Freeman. Just very interested in what their careers ended up evolving into.
Yeah.
So notable industry figures. Could you share some memorable experiences and collaborations you've had and how those interactions shaped your musical path? And just pause on that for a second. So I'm talking about who are some of the people you've interacted with, even if it was just spontaneous. And I really hope I have some stories in mind, but what you're gonna.
Well, Corky Carroll was definitely a figure. I met a lot of people through Corky Carroll. But after that, in one of the clubs that I played in, I was in a lot of top 40 bands as well. And that gave me a whole other aspect of performing because I wasn't playing guitar. I was a performer on stage, and I was all top 40. And I remember in this little club where you throw your peanut shells and there's wood shavings on the floor. This little Afro-American man came up to me and during a break and said, "I really like you singing, and I'm going to give you my card. My daughter is Chaka Khan." And and I'm listening to him going, "Chaka Khan? I love Chaka Khan. She was in Rufus at the time. They were really big, and I just loved her voice and the music. And I thought, okay, here's this little guy coming up to me telling me he's Chaka Khan's daddy. That was a big deal. And I thought, okay. And I wasn't sure to believe him or not. Anyway, I took his card. Later back at the ranch, one day I said, you know what? I'm going to call this guy up. I'm going to call him up and see if he's even like the real thing. And
Somebody big talk or something.
and I had a little red VW bug that I drove around back then. And so I called him up and he answers the phone. And I said, hello, Mr. Charles Stevens. I didn't say Mr. I just said, Jenny Charles. I said, I reminded him who I was. And he says, oh, well, yes. He says, you know what? Chaka Khan is in, Chaka's in town. She's at staying at the Chateau Marmont, which is still today one of the main hotels that most artists and well-known people stay at when they're on the road or doing recording in Hollywood. And he says, you want to go up and meet her? And I said, do I want to go up and meet Chaka Khan? Of course I want to go up and meet Chaka Khan. So we gallivanted up there. I drove, I picked him up. And I was, okay, let's see. I was probably 19. Okay. 19. Anyway, you remember Chaka Khan and her big hair. Anyway, we get to our apartment and we knock on the door and there she is at the door. And you know what? She didn't have her big hair happening. She had her dark hair long. And I looked at her and went, wow, that looks different. And she said, come on in, come in. Would you like a tuna sandwich? I'm making the kids some tuna sandwiches. I was so freaked out at meeting Chaka Khan, I could barely even open my mouth. And I said, no, that's all right. That's okay. So we came in. It was just a little teeny apartment, a little living room and a bedroom. And she had her two daughters. And I went into the bedroom because I was going to be going out that night. And Charles made a comment like, maybe you could buy something in Chaka's closet you could wear. And are you kidding me? So I walk into the bedroom and there on the bed, lo and behold, is her big hair.
Famous
Famous Frolic's freaking hair. I just went, oh my God. And of course, we didn't have cell phones. If I could have taken a picture of that, I would. That was just priceless, seeing her hair, the wig on the bed. And I'm just beside myself, just meeting her. And I was just telling Rachelle that sometimes we get so, I don't know, we forget that people who are really well known are just human beings, just like ourselves. People. They're just people. Yeah. And I sort of got out of myself. And
she sounded pretty down to earth.
She was going to say,
come on, a borrowed dress just 5 minutes ago.
And then the doorbell rings, ding dong. And she goes to open up the door. And this woman comes in with a Mickey Mouse t-shirt on. It's Natalie Cole. And I'm going, what? Oh my God. I'm barely able to handle Chaka Khan, let alone Natalie Cole. And her big song out at the time was, this will be an everlasting love. This will be. That was her big hit single. So she was on the charts along with Chaka Khan with Rufus. And so this was a moment for me. And I really had a hard time just opening my mouth to say anything. I didn't even get to tell them. I didn't even tell them that I was a singer. And I was just saying to Rachelle, that opportunity of just being able to tell them, God, if you ever need a singer to join you on the road or be your backup vocalist or whatever, I'm the girl. That's what I should have done. But I didn't. Anyway, we got a picture together. Yeah, you live in Lair. We got a picture together. Charles was a photographer, her father. And so he took a picture of all of us, Chaka, myself, and Natalie, and Chaka's two little girls.
I can find out. I'll probably put it on the screen. So
yeah, quite cute. Saheva and Malini were her daughters. And that was quite the day. All right.
Mm-hmm. Notable. That's a really fun one.
Yeah.
Notable figures.
Yeah. Another fellow that I had met had seen me perform. His name was Richard Saul. And he wanted to make things happen for me. He wanted me to do a demo. He heard my original songs and saw that I had this raw gift, raw talent. And he tried to make things happen for me. And he's the one who hired me to do the lights at the Starwood Theater in Hollywood, which was a place for artists to perform and showcase their material. Lots of well-known people played there. Like it was sort of like along the lines of the Whiskey Go, the Troubadour, and a couple other places down there. But the Starwood was one of the main. I did the lights for Van Halen right when their first album came out with Eddie Van Halen and the brothers, and David Lee Roth as a singer, and they were great. And it was a place that I met a lot of people. BJ Cook, Foster's first wife, came there. And
okay.
And she came with Paul Stanley.
Is that the first time you met her?
No, I had met her prior to that.
Oh, okay.
Norman McPherson, who I met there, another really close friend of mine even today. Norman lived down in LA, these
Mhm.
fellows that were all from Canada. And he introduced me to BJ Cook and David Foster at the time. And David was doing a lot. He's 16 Grammy Award winning
And not
producer.
then, but at the
No,
time,
he
he
was,
had established himself with
yeah, he was doing Hall and Oates. He was doing Lionel Richie,
Earth.
Earth, Wind and Fire. Oh yeah, major
Yeah.
artists. I could go on
Of
and
course,
on
we're all
about
from the
David.
same city.
Yeah,
originally.
David Foster is from Victoria. And anyway, a lot of people came into the Starwood. I performed there myself, and a lot of the people who worked there didn't even know that's what I did. I was just the light girl. And a lot of people who worked out in LA as have other jobs in order to
Side
pursue their
hustle to
side hustle to
dream.
pursue their dreams.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's about down at that place, down in LA.
Mhm.
It really is. That goes for not actors, any artists of any kind. And Glenn Campbell came to the club with Tanya Tucker. Buddy Guy,
Buddy Guy?
not Buddy Guy. It'll come to me. Anyway, there were so many artists that came here. And again, I didn't have a camera. I could have taken a million pictures of a million artists that I met and saw and did the lights for. It was quite a time in my life. But during that time also, I was performing with another couple bands down in Southern California. One was called Chutney. And we did a lot of reggae and a lot of,
I feel like you told me this name one time.
yeah, Chutney. And we did just a lot of places in Newport
Okay.
Beach.
Yeah.
And
Bands.
yeah, quite a few. Yeah. So I met Norman McPherson at the Starwood, and Norman was down there playing with two of his other friends that were from Victoria here in Canada, KC. And that was Maury Stearns and Jerry. Maury Stearns, bass player, piano player, keyboard player, great player, Mimo. And Jerry Adolph on drums, great players. And they would go around as a trio and play with anybody who wanted them. And they had a tight trio. So Norman was playing with a fellow called Danny Rogers. And Danny Rogers was the nephew to Kenny Rogers. And Danny's father was Leland, was Kenny Rogers' older brother, Leland Rogers. Now, Norman says, why don't you play? He loved my songs. He says, why don't you play your songs for Leland Rogers? And I bet you get a record deal. Deep record deal. And so I'm thinking, well, okay, I'll do them. I'll go in there and do that. So I took my little Gibson guitar, that basically became mine, and one from my father. And I went in and I sat on the rug in the offices and I played my guitar for Leland Rogers. And he really liked my material. And he asked me where I was performing. Was I performing anywhere that he could see me? And I just happened to be performing in Newport Beach on Balboa Island. And it was a hopping night. And he came down with a friend and saw me perform as the lead singer of the band. And he said, okay, sign on the dotted line. So I did get some advice, though. I did talk to a lawyer, a music lawyer, entertainment
lawyers.
and I did an album. And Norman, Maury, and Jerry all played on the album. All the original material was original, except for about 2 songs that Maury did, different drummer, and you're the only one. And Bill Sample was flown down to LA to arrange the strings.
Okay.
So we were all involved on the album, and we had Jim Horn, an incredible session player, one of the top 8 horn players he played on Steely Dan's stuff. He was a top 8 session player, horn player, Jim Horn. Great to have him on the album. And I met when I was at TT&G Studios, where lots of people performed and recorded. I found out that Jimi Hendrix had done stuff there. God, I think even Jeff Beck. It was quite the recording studio.
Just one of those,
yeah. And there was a woman sitting outside the door when I was recording, and I had known about who she was through a friend of mine, Delaney and Bonnie, or Bonnie and Delaney. They were a duo, but an R&B pop from England, I think. Anyway, she was sitting outside the door and she says, was that you singing in there? And I said, yes, that was me. And she goes, wow, you can sing, girl. That was one of my first major compliments that I got from a really well-known artist. Another female singer. Exactly. Yeah. Bonnie Bramlett. Okay. Yeah. Quite something. Yeah. They're in the history books. And that was a big deal for me. Anyway, we finished the album, and it was, I didn't get to hear it yet because it wasn't like all pressed or anything, but I continued to just perform locally down where I lived and continued writing songs. And that's.
So what led you I've got so many questions. Okay, what led you then to make the leap to Canada? Because after
Well,
you did the
yeah, that's coming. That's set. They had to,
where I came along.
yeah, the guys had a falling out with Danny Rogers, and I won't get into that whole story,
No.
but it wasn't fair. Anyway, the guys asked me if I would like to come to Victoria, BC, Canada. And I was young. I was 23. And I said, sure, I'd love to go up there. I was in for an adventure and came up with Norman McPherson. We drove up to Canada and
It looks so different back then.
yeah, it did look a lot different back then. Anyway, I fell in love with Canada. And when we came, it was June 1978, and it didn't get dark till almost 11 p.m. And that was something I'd never seen. But we came, and I was a new girl in town. And Bill Sample and Maurice Stearns had already had a band called the Sample Stearns Band, or the SSB. And basically, I just moved in, became the lead singer in that band. And they already had a following. Everything was already set up for me to just move on in there. And we started playing at a place called one of the oldest music clubs in Canada at the time was called Harpo's downtown. And it had everybody there. Everybody played there at Harpo's. And I'm talking from Katie Land to Robin Ford to Buddy Guy
I think
to,
it's called Upstairs now.
yeah, well,
Upstairs Lounge.
yeah. But it's never been the same.
No.
It was quite the
It was a
club.
very different time where
Yeah.
where there's more venues available catering to artists.
And it was quite the club. And we were like the home, what do you call the band that plays there all the time? One of the main bands that played there is the house band.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we started to we rehearsed a lot, and our material was complicated. We were all songwriters, and it was a bit eclectic. You couldn't.
Sophisticated.
It was sophisticated. You couldn't really put us in a slot. We all came from such different backgrounds, and really, Norman McPherson always says this: what should have happened is that you had just done an album, and it should have just been April and the whatever Canuck heads, whatever. And anyway, because I had just done the album, and it would have had more of a identity as far as material. That's what should have happened, but it didn't. And I didn't seem to have a problem with it. I wasn't even thinking of that. I was just happy.
So you
to
weren't
be
really
singing.
promoting the album.
No, it wasn't even released yet. It wasn't
No.
even pressed yet.
Okay.
This was all really fresh.
Okay.
And we played Vancouver. We did some major concerts, opened up for Maynard Ferguson, did some touring, did some major concerts in Vancouver with lots of upcoming bands. And we were one of the main bands to get a lot of attention in Vancouver. And they were promoting me, the new singer from LA.
So what happened with it? You got the album pressed? Like it came out.
When I went back down in 1978. When I went back down December of 78, the albums had been pressed, and I was able to surprise my parents with the albums all pressed, and they were so tickled pink. They didn't even know I was really even doing this. And I think they hugged each other and cried. They couldn't believe it. Yeah, they were like, they just didn't believe it. It was quite something to have an pressed album. And it's a great album. It's amazing. And they had the album pressed. And then I had to get out of my record deal when I was with Sample Stearns because we were looking at getting signed.
Oh.
And I couldn't be signed to Leland, and nothing was happening. I had to get lawyers, and we were dealing with David Foster. He came up, he was thinking of producing us, and the album, I don't even know if
Didn't really get promotion or just
I didn't even know who he actually got the album out to.
okay.
I had tax shelters, and I think that's how he got his money. I think people just gave him money. So they had rich people and they had tax shelters. So if the project had fallen through, they got a write off. That's how I think it worked.
Okay. I was just curious because you had that album sitting around for a little while, and
He asked me if I wanted to buy. There was like a whole bunch of boxes of albums. He asked me, I'm gonna. Leland Rogers said, I'm gonna get rid of these albums, and I paid, I don't know, I can't remember, a few $100s, and I had my dad Grandpa went up and picked up all the albums in boxes for me so that they wouldn't get trashed. And so I kept the albums, and until that would be your next question, wouldn't it?
I'm just going with like the lead here.
After
You
the
get a
next question.
backstory and then the topic.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Okay. After the Sample Stearns Band, I continued doing my solo career and just doing either a jazz gig or playing guitar in a club. And your dad and I did a lot of performing. We performed at Expo 86. I was doing lots of jingle work. That was another side.
I was 6 weeks old, and he did.
And 1985, I had auditioned for Star Search that Ed McMahon was the host of. and Ed McMahon was the sidekick for Johnny Carson. And
You and Sinbad are on the same.
yeah, I don't know if Sinbad is in the same one I'm in, but anyway, I auditioned and they asked me to do be on Star Search, which is a national TV show that millions of people would be viewing. It was the beginning of before
American
The
Idol.
Voice, American Idol.
Yeah.
It was one of those. And anyway, I did the show, and they right after I had you, they wanted me to come in 2 weeks after I had you, and I said, "There's no way I'm coming down there. No way." Anyway, it was 6 weeks after I had you that Dad and I got on a plane and flew us down. They flew us down to LA, and we had rehearsals, and it was a crazy time because it was Christmas. Everybody wanted to see you, and I had to find an outfit and for this TV show. It was turning nuts. So I think I got sick before the show, and Zoe, Little Wet Fox, showed up and said, "We got to get you into a spa. You got to go sit in that. You got to go
That air
sit-
is fired.
It's
It's
like,
like, calm down.
you got to go into a eucalyptus room." Anyway, that was an incredible experience. And the night before my show, we walked into the hotel. Sheridan, I think it was, where everybody stays that goes down and does shows down there. And there was Tony Bennett. One of my idols was in this little club performing with Carmen McRae. There was maybe, I don't know, 65 people in the room, if that. Very intimate. And I did get up and go up and during his break and introduce myself and say hello to him because he is just incredible. And again, another opportunity where I wish I just said, "Can I sing a song with you?" Because that would have been stupendous to have that.
So much about the platform. What I'm doing here on the show is I'm wanting to interview very inspiring guests and just having those moments, how you can have courage to speak your truth and share your stories and these moments. You've had plenty, though, where you've been very bold. You reflected on those things in the past because the whole point is about growing from those experiences. And every stage at me growing up, you've been, if there's a mic, if there's a stage, if there even isn't one, you make one. There's no bars held back. It's basically music has been our life, and go get them, Tiger. Get out there. You just be prepared and have fun. And I think you really, for me, you're talking about these. I didn't really have much memory of regrets of things that you had expressed. You wish you had gone out and vocalized to Natalie Cole or Chaka Khan or Honey Ben. I'm hearing more of that today. Every moment where I was growing up, it was pretty much you're just going for it. But you either had us here in the studio doing commercials and you're holding it, or you're just going. There didn't seem like there were many beats. You found a way to make it work to still try to.
I think you have to be creative. You have to be creative and find other ways to hone your craft, to do your craft, whether that being commercials, singing on other people's albums. That's what I was doing.
But I also saw you as being someone who was brave, that was going for these opportunities regardless. That was my memory.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad that was your memory.
You learned whatever you are reflecting back during this interview on things in that different chapter. I think you actually rose to the occasion and you flipped the script and you went for it.
Yeah, I've always stayed.
Games.
The Commonwealth Games. We were the opening song for the Commonwealth Games here in Victoria, 1994. Geez,
I was going to ask the question of what are some key highlights in your musical career? I think we're touching on.
That was one. Or Maury Stearns, who was on my album, he and I were singing with another very dear friend, Duncan Meikledum. We were on the center field for the closing ceremony, singing the main song that Maury had written. And that was a highlight. Yeah. The royal family, part of the royal family was there. And it was quite a big deal. It was a big deal for Victoria. And Expo 86 was another big deal. There's been a lot of events, and then Star Search, and then, oh my goodness.
So one of the questions, lots of incredible stories and highlights. You raised us, you did an amazing job.
Yeah,
music.
I was a mom.
Oh yeah. Music coach, your vocal coach still are to this day. I think you really segued into that when I was around 7 years old. And you've had hundreds of students throughout the years.
Vocally and guitar.
Continue adapting. You had these albums, you kept them for a long time.
Oh my goodness.
I just do want to ask, we've got with the listeners, and so maybe a question, how did you cope with, see if I say this right, How did you cope with initial disappointment and moments of doubt when your music didn't get the recognition that you hoped for? Made this album, the bands.
I did wonder, I got all these albums. What the heck am I going to do with them now? The music biz, the industry changed a lot. Vinyl went out the window. CDs pretty much have gone out the window. People are doing everything on Spotify, all the various other, a lot of other platforms. And so I was going, what's going to happen? And it's really strange is I must have sent some kind of an energy out there because probably about 12 years ago, I got a call.
Is that long ago?
No, just a second.
Okay.
12, 13 years ago, I got a call from a fellow who wanted to re-release Sunlit Horizons, the one that I did in high school on the surfing movie. Calls me up and he says, I'm doing a compilation. He was from San Francisco.
So you're like 16?
Yeah, when I wrote that song. And he says, I'd like to re-release that song and I'm putting it on a compilation disc. And I'm going, are you kidding me? I wrote that in high school, for God's sakes. How to find this stuff? Anyway, he sent me a nice little hefty check for releasing that song. So that was the beginning. And that was from the movie Going Surfing. Okay. And then a few years later, I get this message from a fellow, Mark G.V. Taylor, GV meaning good vibes. And he's saying, I have gotten a hold of you and this is my name. And I'd like to re-release 2 songs off your album. And I'm going again, my album? That's like years and years ago. Who are you? And are you kidding me? No, it wasn't even a phone call. It was like, I didn't even respond to him. I thought, okay, we got another bimbo out there, a bozo who wants to do something with, well, my music. Okay, whatever. So he gets a hold of Bill Sample and Bill Sample calls me and says,
it's not crazy.
He says, this guy is legit and you got to get a hold of him. So I went, gosh, okay. So I get a hold of Mark G.V. Taylor and we start a rapport going on. And he's a real thing. He buys 150 of my albums, 30 boxes worth, 50
Good thing you got grandpa to go get those albums.
Yeah, it's a good thing I got grandpa to get those albums.
Well, it took 4
decades later. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So this guy bought 150 albums, 50 to a box. They were still in their cellophane in the UK. They were I shipped them off to him. He paid me to lease the songs to re-release 2 of the songs off the album. Here we are and Tell Me. And holy moly. And out of that, gee, I don't even know if I've got out of that. He had me do an interview. Okay. Hold this out. An interview. You can see my name is April Gislason on there.
Gislason.
And he does a
John on there. Yeah.
And the fellow on the back of this book, if you've gone to look, I performed with him as well. That had nothing to do with Mark G.V. Taylor. I've also performed with the bless his heart, Warren Weeby, who was one of David Foster's singers that he endorsed and played at all of Foster's big things, which I too have performed at with Boss Gags, etc. Anyway, what happened out of this is that he released the song, bought the albums, and then he re-released this. And he did a 45 of the 2 songs. Yeah. And you can see the band in the back, and that's the Sample Stirs band, but it's me in the middle there and the 2 songs that he released, Tell Me and Here We Are.
Nice.
And so he goes around to Japan, Argentina. He's a DJ. And I had no idea the vinyl market was a big deal, but it is.
There's massive
collectors. They're selling my album for 75 pounds to 100 pounds, if you can believe it. We're talking serious resurgence, and I'm going, where have I been? I guess I've been here and he found me. And so he's still at it and he's selling.
So how did that feel when you started? It's 4 decades later. This is an album. You got really excited. You had your first record deal. You lived a life, raised a family, and wondering what's next or what do I do? And then you get these calls out of the blue.
They're out of the blue. You and I have been trying to run something.
I know, but
this was a star that fell out of the sky. And like I was saying, when we have expectations of how things should unfold for ourselves, and they don't, because we're setting a bar, we can get disappointed and bummed out about it. And I think when you when you just do your craft and because you love it and you're transparent and you've got the heart of just doing what you love, things happen. I'll call it magic happens. Sometimes it just falls out of the sky like this. And this is a
Things that are
perfect
also
example.
meant to be
Things that
energetic.
are,
Dream finds you, or that you've got something that's important to share with the world. You have something creatively, and it'll find a way to express itself.
and there you go. So my songs, after all these decades, are getting out there in the world, not just in the United States, in the world. And the same fellow that bought all those albums decided to re-release another song of my album called Tell Me. Sorry, For Us. For Us. And the latest thing that's happened, oh, I didn't even bring it down, I don't think.
That's okay.
I just got it in the mail, I don't know, 5 days ago. And it's on another compilation vinyl.
I have
My
it.
s- oh, there it is.
This just came in the mail.
Just
fresh,
came in the
fresh
mail
off the press.
from the UK. Yeah. And so you can see my name on there. And it's a 2 vinyl. There's 2 albums in
2
there.
albums in there.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's got a great
I don't have a
side,
vinyl player, but I'm wanting to.
right?
For all the, if there are any kids that are okay, that'll listen to it. We're obsessed with high digital, with full spectrum. What would you say? We've got the 4K, we've got the 8K, where we are experiencing photos in such a precision in the way that I'm just explaining that the obsession. I'm like, I've got the new i14, iPhone 10, that's right.
Okay.
But sound, music has become compressed and has lost so much of its
Depth and richness.
Its depth and richness. And say, why does it feel
Well,
different? Because you're actually getting more of the actual sonic spectrum
Mhm.
where you feel it
Yep.
really in your bone.
Nose. That's it,
Yes,
right?
I know. Yeah. So it's something that's very cool. And I can see myself also wanting to start playing vinyl. But that's so cool.
Yes, we just did this concert in the a backyard concert, which are becoming the thing to do, which I think is great because for those people who aren't finding lots of clubs to play in, backyard concerts, the people who are hosting, selling tickets, and you're going and going to a really receptive audience who are supporting live music. It's so exciting. And there's just lots of opportunity. Vinyl has come back. As you can tell, a lot of major artists are doing vinyl now, and it's pretty exciting.
Hold on. Technical interference. 1 sec. So you're telling me about the backyard concert.
Yes, that was great. It was a really wonderful opportunity. I did an old song that I wrote in high school called Jelly Bean Calypso, which was great, and it brought me back. And it was an incredible opportunity as well to do some new material that I've written. And
So you're getting back into your songwriting.
yes, and so that's really exciting. I'm really excited about that because I've been a little bit dry there for a
Do
while.
you feel that the rediscovery of your albums and your songwriting from back in the day inspired that?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
I classic songs that last forever or that are great songs. They last forever. They're
Mhm.
timeless. And I just validated to me that I write good songs. I feel like I write good songs and people remember them. So when they remember them, they're hooky. That's even
New
more.
one I wrote with Lila.
It's a new one. It's called Bones. It could be called I Got a Feeling in My Bones. But yeah, with Lillywhite Fox, one of my dear friends, we co-wrote that. I started it and then I had her come on board and it's got that I got
a feeling in my bones.
yeah, something good is coming my way.
It's stuck in my head.
Right?
Every day. It's very positive.
Yeah. So I'm very
I got a feeling in my bones.
yes. That feels good, right?
Yes, it does.
I got a feeling in my bones. And I'm just feeling that's a real great. I don't know. I just
See, pick me up positive music. And
Yeah.
I really want, it's wonderful to see that you're getting back into songwriting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I want to just maybe just share real quickly. What was your experience when your initial reaction when you realized that your music was being appreciated and celebrated after all these years, finding a new audience? Once it was real. And
I just feel that I'm feeling that like my message, whenever I have to say it, my music holds some weight. I feel validated. I feel validated. I feel like, wow, okay. The lyrics, obviously it's resonating and I'm feeling like it's standing the test of time because it's like 45, they're talking decades here of people coming back, someone coming back and listening to my music and making it, oh, we got to get this out there. It's like,
So
what?
really having stuff that comes from the
Yeah.
heart that's
Authentic, transparent, people
can
feel it,
stand the test of time.
standing the test of time. And that's how I
Very
feel.
true words.
How I feel.
Your experience is really a powerful reminder that doors can open at any time. So I wanted to ask, how do you think your journey might inspire others who maybe have given up on their own dreams or tucked it away in some drawer or an attic somewhere?
Let's just say there's no time limit. You really shouldn't have. We shouldn't have a time limit, even though society feels like you should have. You reach this age and you're no good at this anymore. The window's closed. Yeah.
I feel that's very prevalent in the music industry. I'm not sure about other ones.
Well, probably even in some actors, unless you're ready to bridge the gap of, okay, do you want to play the old man part now? And actors have to just go with the flow on that. Actors like Morgan Freeman and just moving into the direction of.
I'll tell you that it really inspired me because
Right.
after living in LA for many years, I had people who were telling me to lie about my age and just say, oh, no, you look young. So just play that. Don't tell them how old you are. What? I'm hearing this in my early 20s. Wow. And guys, like that really put this energy or this feeling in my body of, oh my gosh, I have a window. I have an expiration.
Yeah, that's
and it put so much pressure on my art. And when you had, I ended up, I started building up a belief system. Maybe I won't really pursue that, or that time is come and gone. And I love my songwriting.
Oh, you've got great songs. I love your songs.
And so I'm just, as I've been journeying when I moved back to Canada and having to settle back into what's this next chapter? How do I journey with my art? What do I want to do with that? And then you had your discovery and saying, hey, they're selling my albums. I'm thinking my first CD, that's very similar kind of parallel. I have a 40-year rediscovery. They're selling hotcakes. Discovery CDs. They're back in the game.
Yeah.
They don't like digital AI connected directly.
Never know.
Out loud. They want to have something tangible in their hands.
Oh my gosh.
So I got really excited about, which is why a huge part of why I wanted to interview you on this today. And I just think it does make a huge difference to letting other people know, look, there never is really a limit. If you're breathing, if you're excited about, you still have some lifeblood and creative impulse to.
You still love what you do, right? That's the thing. My husband and I can travel anywhere in the world, and wherever we go, can usually sit in with other musicians.
You do.
We sit in with other players. That just goes to show you that music is alive and kicking, and it's a universal language.
Yes.
Wherever you go, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you go. People love music in their hearts. And my advice to anyone who's a writer
what is final words of
encouragement if you have a phone. One thing I wasn't doing for a while there was when I'd get ideas, creative ideas, and I'd hear melody, whatever, I'd go, oh, I'll remember that tomorrow. I'll get it. I'd go home and I go, oh, damn it. I can't remember what the melody was or the lyrics. So one thing that I do religiously now is I make sure I put everything down on that little recorder. I sit with my guitar or just sing the melody into the recorder, the lyrics. I even tell them the chords if I need to. Whatever you can, make sure you make a note of it, record it so that you can go back and go, yes, I captured it. It's there. And I'm moving on to finish the song or whatever idea I thought you had. It's going to be something, become materialized. That's something that I learned that you really have to do. And
when inspiration strikes.
Yeah, when inspiration strikes,
do your best to act on.
Because sometimes those are just little fleeting moments that come, like an idea or thought that could be genius, and it comes in, and it's like you either going to grab it now, or I think one of the really exciting things too is that I call them providential moments. Just real quick here. It's our son was doing a business trip to London.
Right.
Yeah. But a business trip, and he decided to take his wife and his 3 little boys with him to make it a business and pleasure trip. And they go into a hotel that they're staying at, and they decide that they want to go into the lounge to have a drink. So they go into the lounge, and lo and behold, he listens to the music in the lounge, and it's my song, Elmy. We're playing in the lounge.
Of all the
And
hotels in London, of all the timing and when how often, I think that DJ was only there, what, a few nights a week?
three days a week.
Yeah.
And he could have walked, Brian could have walked in there 3 minutes too early and missed the whole thing. He walked in while the guy was playing my song. What are the odds of that? What are the
That's
odds of
really
that?
to say essentially that there is a greater force in hands, essentially that
And the guy happened to have the 45 that we showed you earlier. He was there, not Mark G.B. Taylor, a fellow that bought the 45 7-inch single from Mark G.B. Taylor, was actually playing it on a record player and through the system. And it was playing.
maybe it was more of a sign that when we go with the flow and release the resistance of, I don't know how this is going to work, but you said, okay, sign off. Great. You want to repress these albums. I don't know what's going to happen with this. And then we had that.
I
And
know.
there's so many different kind of stories, and who knows, maybe more they're going to pop back in, is when you say yes,
You open up. I think you just
possibilities.
open up the possibilities
And
of
when you talk about how many billions of people, and it really feels a sense of just, I think, wonder and alignment that things are meant to be, will
Yeah.
happen for you, no matter what age.
Yeah,
you are.
that's a pretty amazing story right there.
I love that. Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Beyond.
Yeah.
And so it really just solidifies. Universe has your back. God's got your back.
So what is success? Success. No,
How would you define success?
I think it's just continuing whatever craft that you do with a big loving heart and constantly renewing your thoughts and ideas. Because as we move through our journey, there's always things change. It'd be like Avril Lavigne, right? She's a skater girl. Now she's a grown woman. And it's like people have to reinvent themselves. Your life's got to evolve. Otherwise, you're stuck in this place that
I've heard
you
of
were.
success as being the pursuit of a worthy ideal. So if your desire is to be a great singer and you get up and you work on it and you're making progress towards something that you have as a passion in your heart, you are successful.
That's success. That's success.
And
Everybody's money. Not everybody's happy with money.
Buy
Money
my
buys a lot of things.
A lot of things
And
that are not.
And it's nice to have money. Like I define success as I've done a lot of things. I have a lot of stories, yes, but I've done a lot of things, lots of things I'm proud of. And I'm really proud of you and my children and having been a mom, been able to do my journey with my kids and my husband. It's been just doing that concert the other day was
special.
Was pretty special.
Yeah,
It wasn't just Dad and I, but you joined me and
spontaneous.
and Brian
Brake. Family for years.
Yeah. So it was an opportunity for you guys to play, and we had a fantastic time, and that's what it's about, and sharing it with others. That's what it's about. I'm pretty happy about all this.
It's been really wonderful. As we wrap up, what are I love to ask this question, your 3 top favorite books for inspiration? I love to read.
Well, one of them is Rick Warren's book, The Purpose Driven Life. I really like that book, Purpose Driven Life. Rick Warren. And Francine Rivers is another incredible artist, writer. And she has 3 little books. And the first one's called Unafraid. The second book is called Unspoken. And the third little book is called Unshaken. So I put those all in one book because
that's a little trilogy.
Okay. Yeah. And because of my roots, my mother had this book that she wanted me to read. It's called Rain of Gold, based on a true story, Victor Villaseñor, Spanish guy who lives in Oceanside now, but it's basically, I'd like to see it turn into a movie, but it's called Rain, Reign, Rain of Gold. And it's an incredible book. And then Francine Rivers, those 3. There's a lot of other books, but a lot of books.
3. Thank you so much, Mom, for sharing your valuable insights and remarkable story. Where can listeners find more information about you or connect with you?
I do have a webpage, and it is www.aprilgislason.com. Gislason.
I'll drop all that information.
Okay.
I know.
And the same name for my YouTube channel. And there's lots of stuff on there. And I'm going to be putting more on that YouTube channel. So
yes,
a few places. Yeah.
Teach you some recording engineering.
Yeah.
Those new tunes.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
There you have it, folks. Thank you for tuning in today for our special episode on the Bravery Path, sending you tons of love and blessings on your courageous journey. I really hope that you feel encouraged and inspired. If you have a dream that's been sitting in a drawer for years, we invite you to dust it off and to have fun in the rediscovery. Remember, it's never too late
It's never too late. Thank you for having me. It was awesome. Love you.
Love you, te amo. Have a beautiful day, everybody.